Facebook Live. Wow, it's been a while since I've done this. Like I was still running for governor or something. But it's good to have everybody, and it's good to be back in the saddle. And I'm doing this because it's important. And we've got some important primaries tomorrow around the state. And of course, one in our area, which affects me personally, like my house, my district. And so, there are good candidates running everywhere around the state on the Republican tickets, but you have to pick one. And so tomorrow, if you haven't already voted, certainly in the district that I'm going to be talking about and the candidate you see on that screen with the names all behind him, it says Lawler. That's the guy that I'm voting for. My family has voted for in early voting already for specific reasons. We feel that this district needs a really strong voice in DC to stop all this craziness. Someone who has a lot of experience. I mean, I've worked with Mike personally in the county executive's office. We worked together. For those of you who remember my first race against Andrew Cuomo, when we got close to taking him out, the genius behind that was Mike Lawler. He ran the race, so he's been active. He'll be a great voice. He's an assemblyman right now, and he got elected in a 2-to-1 Democratic district. So he beat the odds, and he worked hard, and he's been a great voice in Albany against the craziness up there. And now he's going to try to take on the craziness down there. So I can't think of anyone better for this seat, and it's why I not only I've endorsed, but I'm certainly voting for tomorrow Mike Lawler for Congress. So we're doing this Facebook Live together last minute to take your questions and to see if you're undecided or if you have some questions or comments, just let us know, and Mike's going to do his best to answer them. So, Mike, good to be with you. You're in Rockland right now?
I am. I'm at our campaign headquarters in Orangeburg, not too far from my house. So we're excited to do this, and I appreciate you taking some time out of your schedule tonight to do this with me and host us on your Facebook page as well as mine. I'm really looking forward to the election tomorrow. I think this year there's so much at stake, and after the maps came out at the end of May, I really just decided that, you know what, it's worth the risk to really stand up for our community all across the Hudson Valley and make sure that we have a voice in Washington, D.C. You know, one party rule in Albany and one party rule in Washington have frankly destroyed our economy. We pay among the highest taxes in America here in the Hudson Valley. Inflation at a 40-year record high, gas prices, hovering at $5 at one point over the summer. Crime, astronomical levels in New York City right now, all because of bad policies that have been implemented by one party rule. And so, you look at the issues, issue after issue after issue. The Hudson Valley and Rockland County, Westchester, Putnam, Dutchess County families have been severely impacted by it. And, I think as somebody who's lived here my whole life, my family's been in Rockland County for over 100 years. I've worked in Westchester County under your leadership in the county executive's office. I've done a lot of client work over in Putnam County. Being someone who has lived in this district, worked in this district, I care very deeply about it and making sure that we have representation, that we restore, balance at every level of government, but especially down in Washington, D.C., and apply some common sense down there. And so that's really why I'm running.
And God, we need you because right now, I love when the government says, inflation's at 8% or whatever it is. All I know is, like maybe 6 months ago, I went and bought eggs and it was $1.99 and now it's like $3.50. Okay. That's not 8%. And when I go fill up my car like I did yesterday, I remember like a year and a half ago, it was to fill up the car $35, $40. Now to fill up the car, it's $75, $80. That's not 8%. So no matter what it is officially, people are feeling it. And your opponents, and one of them, they've got their primary tomorrow too, the Democrats. And so you've got Sean Patrick Maloney, who is the incumbent. And he just voted for all of the Biden agenda and
He's
massive.
Rob, he's voted 100% of the time with Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. You
You
can't say that you're a centrist or you're a
yeah.
moderate or you're representing the Hudson Valley if you're voting 100% of the time with the far left leadership of your party. It just doesn't work.
And then he's in a primary against someone who's probably further to the left than he is, believe it or not.
If
And
it's possible,
Biaggi,
yes.
it's like, so whoever wins that primary, you're going to have to take on. And, in the next 2 months, 2.5 months, people need to know what really is at stake. And I really think, look, in the past, I think Democrats and Republicans, you'd play in that sandbox, right? It would go left, it'd go right, but there were rules. And at the end of the day, you'd bump into a wall and you wouldn't go past that. And that's that. It was policies. Right now, it's personal destruction from the left. They've blown through whatever wall was on the left to the point now they are outwardly socialist, and it's we're at a dangerous point in this country. And I say that because people have to get involved. If you don't like the crap you're looking at around you, of what's happening in our schools and what's happening with our prices as you try to afford life, and the crime, all those kind of things, not to mention the lack of a border and our southern border and what's happening locally because of that, well, then you got to vote, and you got to vote tomorrow if you're a Republican to send not only a message, but pick the right Republican who can win, who is conservative and who can win. Otherwise, if we're going to send a candidate who cannot beat either Biaggi or Sean Patrick Maloney, then we're going to put up with at least 2 more years of misery, probably a lot more than that, because they're going to be entrenched in their policies. So Mike is the candidate. So Mike, let me ask you: you've got inflation running rampant right now, where people can't afford it. Let's talk about that first. What are some of the things that you would do to stop this economy from spinning out of control?
Well, first and foremost, I would not have supported the quote unquote Inflation Reduction Act.
I love that.
It is nothing more than a slimmed down version of Build Back Better, which was, the progressive pipe dream, and incorporated a lot of the Green New Deal into it. Sean Patrick Maloney was a proud original co-sponsor. He tells everybody he was an original co-sponsor of the Green New Deal, which is why I say, he's not a moderate. So when people think he is, just look at his record and look what he stands for. He stands for the Green New Deal. He stands for cashless bail. When he ran for attorney general in 2018, he said that was his top priority, enacting cashless bail. So, with respect to inflation, the bottom line is this: we need to stop printing new money. When you look at the amount of money that we have spent over the last 2 years, it's insane. Trillions upon trillions of dollars in new money that has been printed. And that has contributed greatly to inflation. On top of that, you look at our energy policies in the country, and we were on the path towards energy independence under the prior administration. This administration reversed course and basically cut the supply. And as any economist will tell you, when you cut supply and demand increases, well, price increases. And so that is what we've seen across the board. Obviously, we've also dealt with issues pertaining, to trade. We've dealt with supply chain issues that have also impacted a lot of this. Fundamentally, we need to get to a place where we reduce spending, thereby reducing the printing of new money. We need to reduce taxes. We need to get our full SALT deduction back for Hudson Valley families. That's something that Sean Maloney said that he would do. And the Democrats have controlled everything in Washington and failed to do it. He said that they would get that done. That should have been part of this Inflation Reduction Act. The fact that it was not, it was remarkable. On top of that, they're raising taxes on middle-class families. Anyone making between $200,000 and $500,000 is going to see a tax increase.
Which, by the way, that amount of money in this area is strict middle class.
Absolutely. Look, if you have a mortgage, if you have college loans, if you have car payments, if you're a family of four, that absolutely is middle class. It's, a teacher and a police officer living together. And I'll tell you, we need to get to a place where we focus on our families here in our community. And it starts by cutting taxes. We have to reduce spending, and we got to stop printing new money. We need to get our supply chain issues under control, and we need to get people back to work. That's also played a factor in this, and the cost of goods has risen astronomically. My wife and I just had a baby back in April, and I can tell you, the cost of goods pertaining to babies is through the roof. And obviously, we dealt with and are still dealing with the formula shortage, which has impacted families as well. So
But here's
getting
the good news,
inflation
Mike.
under control is critical.
Mike, the good news is, according to the left, to the real progressives, you can breastfeed now. You can breastfeed your baby. That's good. This is the nuttiness we're needing to stop in this country, folks. We got a bunch of questions rolling in. So if you have comments or questions for Mike, start sending them in. Let me ask you this, and then we'll get to some comments. The border is completely wide open. That is by design. We see what is happening in Washington, and the Biden administration literally inviting everybody in from around the world, and so they're coming. We see what's happening on a daily basis now, close to home, which of course we've been talking about for the past year with these flights coming into the county airport. And what New York City is pretending to be a crisis right now as they battle Greg Abbott's couple busloads we've been dealing with plane loads almost on a nightly basis into Westchester and Stewart. So how would you deal with the immigration issue, where people are flooding in, trying to claim asylum when we know that that is not the case with under the definition of asylum in the law of over 99% of the people coming in, yet they're getting everything and they're given a free pass. So how do you deal with that?
Well, first and foremost, my wife is an immigrant, as you know. She came here from Moldova. She earned her citizenship in 2020. So as you and I have talked about many times, we support legal immigration, and we want people who want to come here to do so, and to contribute to our society and our communities. But we want them to follow a process. The problem is here that this process is broken on multiple levels. It's broken with respect to our porous border. It's broken with respect to the legal immigration process. And it's broken with respect to the over 20 million illegal immigrants who are here. And so on every level, we need to address it. And we need to do it in a way that's reasonable, that's fair, but that holds people accountable for the decisions that they make. And starting with our border, it needs to be secure. The fact is we have, hundreds of thousands of people crossing over the border, being flown up to areas like our community here in Westchester County, Stewart Airport, just north of us, and being dispersed into our communities. And our communities then, and nonprofit organizations and others and churches are on the hook to provide support for these folks. And so that fundamentally is wrong, and it needs to be addressed. Secondarily related to that is the issue of human and drug trafficking across our borders. And I've spoken to so many families who have been impacted by substance use disorders, and their children or other family members dying as a result of overdoses, often related to fentanyl, which is coming across our border. And so that's something that absolutely needs to be addressed. The federal government has an obligation to do so, and to not do so is criminal. And then I think, obviously, moving forward, we need to address the legal immigration system so that people who want to come here, who want to contribute to our society, who want to pursue their American dream, have the opportunity to do so. That's something that I support fully. And then, of course, we have to deal with the fact that there's over 20 million people here who are undocumented. You're not going to be rounding them up and kicking them all out. But we have to have a process, and we have to deal with that. And so that's something that, I think is important. And obviously, anybody who's broken the law in addition to coming across the border illegally, that needs to be addressed as well. And so that's something that I think fundamentally, from an immigration standpoint, those three levers there we need to address.
And a third of the women who are crossing the border have been sexually assaulted on their journey. A third. And we're the voices against that.
Oh, absolutely. And when you look at the human trafficking
Yep.
that is going on, and the women and children who are being forcibly brought across the border, we have an obligation to act. The problem is, in a state like New York, we're treating criminals like victims.
Yep.
And that obviously is something that needs to change. People need to be held accountable for their conduct and their actions. And, Kathy Hochul and my colleagues in the majority of the state assembly and the Senate have allowed this to happen. And Sean Patrick Maloney, as I said earlier, said cashless bail was his top priority. Alessandra Biaggi got elected and implemented it into law. Both of them are totally off kilter when it comes to public safety, supporting law enforcement, and making sure that our communities are safe and that criminals are held accountable for their conduct. It needs to change. And, we saw a few weeks ago with the incident with the bodega employee, Jose Alba, and he was attacked. And then he was charged with murder when he was acting in self-defense. And it took an outcry from me and you and others across the state to get those charges dropped. Meanwhile, Alvin Bragg refuses to prosecute repeat offenders who are committing violent offenses on the daily. And that is a major problem. And so, when you talk about these issues, whether it's immigration, whether it's crime and public safety, whether it's inflation, they're all important. And we need to have voices of reason and balance at every level of government.
How about some questions? You want to take some questions?
Yeah, sure.
All right. We'll start off with, let's see. Are you pro-union?
I am. I've had a very good relationship with the construction and building trades industry, and certainly with law enforcement. I support the right of workers to unionize. But I also think there needs to be an understanding that we don't need to always be at odds between, labor and business. The objective should be to grow our economy. The objective should be for people to certainly make profit, but obviously to have a well-paid labor force. Living in the Hudson Valley, we do have a high cost of living, and people need a good-paying job. And I certainly think, from my work in the assembly and prior, I worked with the operating engineers, Local 825. To me, fundamentally, I want people working. And whether that's a union job or a non-union job, the focus should be to grow the economy and create economic opportunity for all. And I think unions play a part in that for sure. And I'd also say, my sister-in-law is a teacher. She is a member of the union and a union leader in her school. And so, again, they play a role, and certainly here in New York, they've played a major role, in comparison maybe to other parts of the country. But it's always finding a balance, but making sure that we are continuing to grow our economy and move forward in a way that gives everybody opportunity.
This question comes from me. Yankees and Mets are playing tonight. Which one?
I'm a diehard Yankees fan. I used to work at Yankee Stadium. I was a vendor while I was in college.
Oh yeah, what'd you sell?
So I sold Cracker Jacks, hot dogs, soda. I never got to sell beer because it was it was a union, so it was seniority based. So I never got to sell beer. A lot of those guys had been there from the early 1970s. And so they were never giving those gigs up. They were making good money for 81 games a year. at Yankee Stadium. But I loved it. That was one of my favorite jobs, besides working for you, of course. But that was one of my favorite jobs, being a vendor at Yankee Stadium.
Oh, that's a cool job. Yeah, and hopefully at the bottom of your Cracker Jacks box tomorrow is something that says victory.
Absolutely.
Let's see here. So this is a biggie. Apparently, I didn't know this. You and I should both be wearing our masks right now because we're still in a COVID emergency, according to Kathy Hochul. Teresa wants to know, can anything be done with forcing COVID vaccines to those who want an education? She said specifically at Hudson Valley Community College, but really, this is their agenda. I mean, we just went through this where society was separated between those who were vaccinated and those who didn't, even though it obviously did not stop the spread or do anything. But we still have this movement, and Lord knows what, with monkeypox coming along, what the Biden administration might pull. So, what's your thoughts on the vaccination?
This has been obviously a topic of major concern for residents all across New York State, especially. So many people have lost their jobs because they refuse to get the shot. I believe in the efficacy of it. I am vaccinated. I got my booster, but that was my choice. And I certainly, I was out there campaigning every day, and I just, felt that that was important for me. I also had COVID in March of 2020 when it
Yeah,
first
you had
came
it bad.
around, and again earlier this year. But I think, fundamentally, I don't think it should be mandated. And I think certainly the idea that people are being kept from their jobs, from their education, because they choose not to get vaccinated, I think is fundamentally wrong and un-American. I think when you look at the vaccine, the reality is this: it is much more like the flu shot than a vaccine because it does not prevent you from getting COVID. I do think it helps mitigate the chances of it and mitigate the effects of it, and prevents, the potential of death and hospitalization at a much greater level than if you didn't get it. However, it does not stop you from getting it. And I think to mandate it, especially so early in the vaccine development, is wrong. I also want to point out one thing that I did earlier this year. Kathy Hochul tried to circumvent the legislature and implement a health regulation that would allow the Department of Health to physically remove you from your home and forcibly quarantine you in an undisclosed location. And some people may say, oh, that sounds crazy. But it's not. And we sued Kathy Hochul, myself, Senator George Barrillo, and Assemblyman Chris Tague. The three of us, along with Westchester-based attorney Bobby Ann Cox, we filed a lawsuit and we won. The courts ruled in our favor that the regulation was unconstitutional, that it violated the separation of powers, and impacted legislative authority. And they ruled that it could not be implemented. Governor Hochul is appealing that decision along with Tish James, the attorney general. And they're appealing it for no good reason other than she is power hungry. These continued executive orders implementing a state of emergency are totally out of control. And it is, Kathy Hochul, learning from her predecessor, Andrew Cuomo, abusing their authority, abusing their power, and taking away our individual freedoms and rights. And it's wrong. And that's something that I will always stand up against and speak out against, and have and successfully won in court against Governor Hochul.
All right. An important question from Kevin Nolan. Are you going to shave your beard when you win in November?
No. My wife, I don't know, Rob, I think the last time I was clean shaven, I was working in the county executive's office. My wife prefers that I have a beard, and so I've adopted
the answer.
The adage, happy wife, happy life, and taken it to heart. So that's why continue to rock a beard. I'd like to think I have a pretty solid beard going. That's, you know,
It's good. No, it looks good, and it's like playoff hockey. That beard can't come off until
that's
at
it.
least November 8th. So,
That's it.
let's see. Anything else you want to add? If you have another comment or question, we got like another couple of maybe 5 minutes or so. So, slip in your comments here. I'm just going through them. Um, the no cash bail law. I mean that's a obviously a huge issue right now. I mean it's more of a state issue, but a lot of this progressive nonsense, incubates somewhere, right? It could be California. It could be the lunatics in Congress that start bubbling this up and try to make it national. Um, you know, can you, as a member of Congress, can you actually do something on no cash bail, or is that more of a state issue that you can advocate for and maybe even tie funding to something that the state wants?
Well, like is often the case, we've seen the federal government do it, and we've certainly seen the state government do it with respect to tying federal dollars and state dollars to certain actions.
Yeah.
I very much believe that the cashless bail law needs to be repealed. Judges need discretion, and there needs to be a dangerousness standard. New York State is the only state in the country that does not have a dangerousness standard, and it's wrong. If somebody is an imminent threat to public safety, they need to be held, period. And judges need the ability to do that. So many of these offenses have been downgraded in terms of being bail eligible. And that is a major problem. That's violent offenses. We're not talking about low-level offenses. I understand why some of my colleagues pushed for bail reform, because you certainly had low-level, offenses and people being held in Rikers Island specifically and not being able to get into the court system in a timely manner. And so instead of addressing the issue of the courts in New York City specifically, they created this whole system of non-monetary bail and implemented it statewide, causing so much havoc in our communities. And we've seen so many repeat offenders be released on non-monetary bail. The Democrats will say, "Oh, it's only 2% of people released, commit an offense," and that's just not true. Of the over 10,000 instances of somebody being released on non-monetary bail, there 40% have been rearrested. 40% of people released on non-monetary bail have been rearrested while charges are pending. That is outrageous. And it's something to me that is totally unacceptable. So from a federal standpoint, I've certainly worked in the state assembly to introduce legislation to repeal cashless bail, to make it so that, for instance, if you kill a cop, you get life in prison, period, without the possibility of parole or clemency or pardon, like Andrew Cuomo, who pardoned or granted clemency to David Gilbert, a unrepentant domestic terrorist and cop killer, who ultimately got pardoned last year. We need to fix so many of these problems. But to me, fundamentally, if New York State is unwilling to do it, then we need to look from a federal standpoint what we can do, both in terms of strengthening federal law, but also holding New York accountable. And if it means tying some of the money to changes to the criminal justice system, so be it. I think we need to take action, and I think we need to make sure that our communities are protected, first and foremost.
Let me ask you, I think I always saw one question about this. I was pretty generic, but let me ask you, Second Amendment, big issue. The Supreme Court finally, it took 10 years between cases, but they finally ruled, and it was a big one that affected New York. It was out of New York. And as soon as the Supreme Court ruled, New York State went right at it and made sure that if you have a concealed carry permit like I do, or the ability to get one like most people should, that it's basically going to be inoperable. It's going to be impossible. They've set up all these areas in New York City already that you can't take your gun legally, which renders having that permit useless. You know, if I go into New York City with my pistol, which I'm legally able to do, all of a sudden there's all these quote gun-free zones, which we know don't work. There's these gun-free zones now set up. I'm literally going in and out of zones. I can't even bring my gun where I need it the most. So it's stupid. But just generically speaking, where are you on the Second Amendment? It's an important issue, obviously,
Oh yeah.
for New Yorkers. It's an important issue for a lot of Republicans and conservatives.
So I fully support the Second Amendment. Law-abiding gun owners have the right to exercise their constitutional right. And in the case of Kathy Hochul's, special session to bring us back and deal with New York's unconstitutional concealed carry law, I voted against her proposed fix because it was unconstitutional itself. And I think it will be thrown out in court. And I think it was illogical. The Supreme Court ruled that New York was discriminatory in how it administered the concealed carry application, and that it was very arbitrary as to who could get it and who couldn't. And if you're an elected official, you're more likely to be able to get it than your average citizen, which is wrong. And really doesn't make any sense. People have the right to protect themselves and protect their families when they're out in public. When we debated the concealed carry bill that Governor Hochul, brought us back for at the end of June, I asked the bill sponsor, Jeff Dinowitz, so you've enumerated 20 categories by which we can't carry, a pistol in public. Can you enumerate for me where we can?
Yeah.
And he said his response was your house. And I said, well, you don't need a concealed carry license to carry in your house. I said, so where exactly, separate apart from your house, can you carry? And his response was right in front of your house. I said, okay, so if I'm on the public sidewalk in front of my house and I'm legally able to carry, yes. I said, okay, if I walk down the sidewalk in front of my neighbor's house, am I legally able to carry? He said, no.
Yeah.
And
What he meant was nowhere.
Yeah. So basically, you're not allowed to carry anywhere, even if you get a concealed carry license. And that was the Democrats' fix to the Supreme Court ruling. I think it's going to be thrown out in court, as it should be. It's not going to do anything to keep our communities safe. If you want to address the scourge of gun violence, then we need to start by going after criminals. If you want to address gun violence, then any gun offense needs to be bail eligible. The fact that you have gun-related crimes that are not bail eligible is insane. When you're talking about getting illegal guns off the streets, well, then you should reinstitute the anti-crime unit in New York City, whose primary focus was on getting illegal guns off the streets. If you want to address a glaring loophole in Raise the Age, then 16 and 17-year-olds who are in possession of a illegal firearm needs to be charged in criminal court, not family court. Those are some quick things that we could do to address the issue of gun violence in our communities, especially in New York City. But for me, I voted against a number of the bills that Governor Hochul tried to ram through at the end of session. The focus has to be on going after criminals. The other thing I would say is with respect to our schools. School safety obviously is critically important. I fully support increasing the number of school resource officers in our schools. I believe we need to harden the buildings. One of the bills that I was proud to help champion and get across the finish line at the end of session was Alyssa's law, which would require school districts to take into account panic alarms as part of their safety plans. And I think panic alarms obviously are critical in terms of shortening the time of a response by law enforcement to an active shooter. situation. So that's something that I think we need to look at different ways that we can address these challenges. But I am in full support of people's Second Amendment rights and law-abiding gun owners' ability to protect themselves and their families.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Probably mint chocolate chip.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what my wife and my daughters love. I always have to make runs to ShopRite to get mint chocolate chip.
Turkey Hill. That's the best one.
That's
Turkey Hill mint chip.
By the way, at ShopRite, it's 2 for $6 right now, so you can get 2.
All right, I'll see you later.
Of those. Let me ask you final question.
Yes.
Mario M. Cuomo Bridge or Tappan Zee Bridge?
Is that really a question? It is.
That's what we call a softball.
It is the Tappan Zee Bridge. It will always be the Tappan Zee Bridge. I was proud to follow in your footsteps on that. You were one of the first to make sure, you and Ed Day, to fight to make sure that the Tappan Zee Bridge name stayed. Andrew Cuomo obviously did something so cynical and just so arrogant, putting his family name on the bridge. We all know if he could have, he would have made it the Andrew M. Cuomo Bridge. But the legislature, that would have been a bridge too far, even for the legislature. So they named it the Mario M. Cuomo Bridge in a backroom deal in a special session. And, to me, fundamentally, the bridge name should be restored as the Tappan Zee Bridge. We should respect the Native American and Dutch history of this region. And I put the bill in to do that, to restore the bridge's rightful name. When we were getting towards the end of session and I had decided that I was going to run for Congress, the Democrats had killed the bill in the Transportation Committee by one vote. And so I went up to the Transportation Committee chair and I said to him, I said, "Oh, by the way, I just want you to know I'm going to be running for Congress." He said, "Oh, great. Good luck. Good for you." I said, and just so you know, should I win, when we have our first transportation bill, there will be a provision in there that the bridge needs to be renamed back or New York doesn't get any money. And he's like, "Oh," I said, "No, I'm not kidding." So we will keep the pressure on to make sure that gets done for sure.
Oh, good. Well, look, there's a bunch of candidates running around New York State right now. I am a friend of Steve Wells, who's running in Central New York, so he's in a primary tomorrow. Carl Palladino is a longtime friend of mine. If you're in Western New York and the Southern Tier, there's a lot of candidates that are running. I forget, is Claudia Tenney running a primary? I can't remember. She is, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Claudia Tenney's she's a bulldog, and boy, she needs to be in Congress. So look, there's a lot of good Republicans running, and any Republican that is running would be a million times better than whatever Democrat is running or in office currently. But life is about choices, and tomorrow is one of them. We've got our primary tomorrow in the Republican and conservatives. So, I'm asking that you go out and vote for my good friend, the guy, wait, over this way. Wait, hold on a second. That way. There. Mike Lawler. So please make sure you vote for him tomorrow, 6 a.m. until 9 o'clock at night, normal hours where you would normally vote tomorrow. And if you have more questions for Mike, I guess you can hit him up on Facebook and they will do their best to get back, correct?
Yes, we will. I know people reach out constantly. You can also go to our website, lawlerforcongress.com, or you can email me at mike@lawlerforcongress.com. We're happy to answer any questions. Rob, I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me and for your support, and friendship. It means a lot to me on a personal level, and I certainly appreciate it. Like I said, there's so many issues going on, and so many important topics to address, from inflation to energy and gas prices to immigration to crime to education. That's why I'm running. At the end of the day, whether you're a Republican, a conservative, a Democrat, an independent, all of us want a few basic things out of life. We want a good paying job to provide for our families. We want a quality education for our children. We want access to affordable housing and healthcare, and we want to live in safe neighborhoods. And to me, that is most important when you talk about all these issues that we're dealing with. And that's why I'm running. And as somebody who's lived in this district my entire life, born and raised in Rockland County, my family's been here for over 100 years. In 2020, I ran for the state legislature because of the issues going on in New York State, primarily our high taxes and the cashless bail law that made our communities less safe. We flipped a 2-to-1 Democratic district that had 22,000 more Democrats than Republicans. We took out a 14-year incumbent who was entrenched and not doing anything on behalf of our community. And you know what? The same is going to happen this year. Sean Patrick Maloney, should he be the Democratic nominee after tomorrow, has been in office for 10 years. He's failed to deliver for Hudson Valley families. He's failed to make our communities more affordable. He has instigated and supported the cashless bail law that made our communities less safe. And frankly, he's failed to deliver on the needs of our residents. And as the DCCC chair, he said just this weekend again that his top priority is holding on to Nancy Pelosi's majority. It's not addressing inflation. It's not addressing gas prices. It's not addressing affordability. It's not addressing our economy. It's not addressing education. It's not addressing public safety. That is a fundamental problem. If you think things are going great, then by all means, vote for Sean Patrick Maloney. But if you're looking for a change, if you're looking for a new voice, somebody who's going to stand up to the Biden agenda and fight back, then I'm your guy. And I have a proven record up in Albany. I took on Andrew Cuomo from the moment that I walked in the door until he resigned in disgrace. I've stood up to Kathy Hochul. I've fought to make our communities more affordable. I've fought to fight the fight to make sure that we are getting our fair share of state aid for education here in the Hudson Valley. And I will be that voice, a voice of reason, a voice of common sense, and a check and balance on this radical, out of control agenda that is destroying our country and our economy. And that's what we need. We need someone who's going to fight. Tomorrow is primary day in both the Republican and conservative parties. I humbly ask for your vote and your support because together we can win this election. Since I announced at the end of May, we've raised close to $600,000, far and away the most of anyone in this race, but also, frankly, in that time period, at the most in the state. So we are making great, great progress. I've been endorsed by Kevin McCarthy, Steve Scalise, Elise Stefanik, Rob Astorino, elected officials across the district. I'm the endorsed Republican and Conservative Party candidate, both by the 4 counties, the county committees, as well as the state parties. The NRCC has put me on the radar as part of the Young Guns program and will make me an official Young Gun the first week of September. So the support is there, both nationally and locally. And this is the year to do it. And we need to be unified. We need to make sure that we have the resources we need to win in November, on November 8th. And I believe that I'm the best candidate to do that. So on tomorrow, when you go to the polls from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., I ask for your vote. And please help turn out your friends, your family, anyone who you know is a registered Republican or conservative, and make sure they vote. Make sure their voices are heard in this process. So with that, I again thank you, Rob, for hopping on, and thank you to everybody who took the time out to watch. And I look forward to a great victory tomorrow night and in November.